Well, I think basically everyone in the Destiny community can agree on one thing right now. This season, Season of the Worthy, was probably the worst season we have ever had. And that is maybe giving Season of Undying a free pass into his bundle with Shadowkeep. But as a standalone season, yes, this is probably the worst one we have ever had, and community apathy is at an all-time high. People are leaving left and right. That doesn't really mean that the players are astronomically low, it just means that they're very low compared to usual. And based on how the season is going, that's not really surprising at all. In fact, I would suspect it's pretty much lower, but anyways, here are the reasons why I think this season is failing so horribly. Before we get into why I think the season failed on most levels, I think it's important to realize the context going into the season. At the end of last season, we've donated enough Fractalin to rebuild the entire lighthouse from Destiny 1, but not the exact one, but basically it culminated in the reveal of Trials of Osiris coming back, which we already knew going into this season. This was important to know because we already knew there was going to be significant PvP content, or at least so we thought. So we sort of assumed that PvE content would be light, but we really didn't know what to expect until the calendar for the season was revealed, which is shown here. Once the community was given the calendar for the season, they were already sort of riled up because we noticed that there was a lot less content put on this season calendar compared to, as you can see here, Season of the Dawn's season calendar, which seemed to have a lot more content on it. The reasoning Bungie gave was because they wanted to keep more surprises and not let them know everything that was happening on the calendar. However, I think this was somewhat of an excuse to pretty much mask the minimal amount of content that we got in this season. So let's start at the very beginning of the season, as far as content that we were getting. The main focus of the season was around a new PvE event that focused as like a public event, where anyone could join from 3 different planets, Io, EDZ, and then the moon. The first one that was released was the one on the EDZ, which basically revolved around you throwing a orb into a gate or another ball, and you had to basically charge up these towers, and once you did, to a certain point, it spawned 2 champions. Once you killed them, it ended the public event and you got loot specific to the season. During the season for PvE, we got 6 different weapons, 2 from the season pass and then 4 from the bunkers, which is the other thing that was added. The bunkers basically functioned the exact same as obelisks from last season. They had different upgrades that you could purchase that basically gave you the seasonal currency from doing all sorts of activities throughout the entire game. And you had to get a certain amount of these upgrades to be able to purchase the weapons for the season. We had a auto rifle, a hand cannon, a machine gun, and a submachine gun. Now the thing that specifically helps these weapons, because you could not get as good as perk combinations on them, is that they had a specific new seasonal mod that can be put on the armor that only affects these weapons. Basically what happens is whenever you kill an enemy, an orb drops out of them, and once you destroy the orb, it has a multitude of different effects that you can do based on the mods that you have. In the background gameplay, I have the one equipped where if you destroy a cell, it destroys basically all the enemies in the area, setting them on fire if it doesn't immediately kill them. This is probably the best mechanic added in the season, and probably the best thing about the season as a whole. Anyways, so along with the bunkers, you also had to clear them daily, which basically meant it was just a lost sector basically, with a couple champions and a boss at the end, really nothing special. The thing is you couldn't upgrade your entire base unless or access any of your upgrades or buy anything until you cleared out the bunker every single day. Another thing that you couldn't access that was also a new activity was legendary lost sectors. However, these basically had no effect on the game. They basically offered no special rewards, and they were kind of mind-numbing and not really that engaging. Basically, that was all the content we got at the beginning of the season, right out the gate. And except for, you also got 3 new PvP maps that were from Destiny 1. Cauldron, Anomaly, and then you also got Exodus Blue. Speaking of PvP, the next event that was supposed to happen was, on March 13th, Trials of Osiris from Destiny 1 was supposed to come back, Now, it was already kind of interesting that it looked like it wasn't really any new weapons and they were all reskins, and the armor was literally a carbon copy from Destiny 1. But a lot of people liked the D1 armor set, so it was cool enough. Once Trials launched, it was immediately clear that something was different. A change that I do like was that you got a choice of 5 different passages instead of 1, offering different unique bonuses for each different passage. The reward structure worked almost how it was in Destiny 1. You get tokens every single time you won or lost a game, while you used to get more for winning. And then you also got a weapon or armor piece that was dictated by Bungie. They decided which weapons would be doled out for 3 wins, 5 wins, 7 wins, and then flawless. Now, it seems fine on the first week, until people got to the lighthouse and realized that there were no adept weapons at all, which was a huge thing for Trials that we immediately thought was going into it. But since it wasn't going into it, that really discouraged a lot of people from wanting to go flawless, because the rewards weren't really that good compared to a Master Nightfall that you could run in about half the time. The good thing about it was that you could run it as many times as you wanted to, but again, you could also do Master Nightfalls the exact same. So really, the first week of Trials that it returned, it really did not leave that great of an impression. Also on PC, cheaters were starting to emerge, and on console, DDoS attacks were pretty rampant. Anyways, we'll get back to Trials later, because it continues to deteriorate over time during the season. But the next thing that happened was we got access to the legendary Lost Sectors on the 24th, and we also got access to the Moon Bunker. There was virtually no change between the Moon Bunker and the EDZ Bunker and the Seraph Tower events. They were almost carbon copies of each other. Now, the first really frustrating thing that happened in the season was on March 17th, whenever the 4th Horseman from Destiny 1 was released with an exotic quest. The quest itself was nothing special, it was literally just filler stuff, so nothing really inspiring except for the first step, where you went to a secret area in Zaval's office. That was pretty cool. Too bad we didn't get to spend more time there. But besides that, it was literally do public events, patrols, open chests, really boring stuff. And then the last step was to complete the Quarry Legendary Lost Sector. However, that Lost Sector was not available at the time because it's not a 3-day rotation. So people thought that it was time gated, which was a ton of backlash towards Bungie, because we've had basically enough of time-gated stuff, and we already had to wait for the quest long enough, so people were not happy. Bungie eventually fixed this with a patch later that day that made the Lost Sector available that needed to be completed, but it felt like to the Destiny community that they were just basically repairing their mistake, because they probably wanted to be time-gated, but they didn't realize how much backlash they were going to get. So that was all the content we got for the first month in March. Then on the 7th, we got the Io Seraph Bunker and the Legendary Lost Sectors and the event on Io. Basically everything included with Io. That was for PvE content at least. The next thing that happened on the calendar was a brand new event that we've never heard of or seen, called Guardian Games. This was a replacement for the Revelry as a spring event for everyone in the community to partake in, so it was free for everyone. Now, how this event worked is basically during the entire event, when you had your certain class item on, because it was against Titan, Warlocks, and Hunters, see who would win. Once you had your class item on, whenever you got ability kills, it would drop something that looked like a mote that was called the Laurels. And whenever you would pick them up, you would eventually complete bounties, which required you to get certain laurels, certain activities, and that was how you got the last piece of exotic gear for the season, called the Heir Apparent. It was a heavy machine gun, and you got it from completing a bunch of different triumphs, which took a long time, unless you basically deleted characters to get it much quicker. The thing was, since most of the community were hunters, so it would be a little bit unbalanced, Bungie made it so they only got half the amount of points when you turned in bounties and basically got medals and deposited them in tower, which rose your different classes flag, which that would signify who won. So since there were so many hunters, they got basically half the amount of points since there were so many of them, except for ever since they learned that they were basically being cheated out of different points, they decided to just not play. So Hunters won in the beginning, the first day, because there were so many of them. But then Titans, since they were probably the best class to get ability kills with, which was the only way you could get laurels, they won every single day for the rest of the 3-week period, which was just insane. And really, community apathy started around this point because it was just a whole bunch of bounty grinding, which was also the best way to get seasonal currency, so people were just completely done with it. Plus, people were accusing Titans of cheating and Bungie fidgeting with the numbers themselves, but they came out and said that that's not what's happening. Overall, I'd say that it was a definite failure for the first time this event came around. If they bring it back, hopefully they'll do some more tuning and refining with it, but we'll see. Now, up to this point, the season has been a massive letdown disappointment. But PvE players, since there was so little content, they were really looking forward to the last thing on the calendar, which was the Grandmaster Nightfall difficulty. Now, people were already concerned because in the trailer for the season, we saw that the only rewards would just be an increased chance at exotics and different upgrade materials. But people were really holding on to hope that you would get different rewards that like strike exclusive weapons or armor. That would actually be pretty cool if that actually happened. However, before they released, they came out in a This Week at Bungie and stated that the title for the season, that was specifically around Grandmaster difficulty Nightfalls, would be the only reward really for completing these. And these Nightfalls were really tough. You were basically had challenge modifier on the entire time. There were a whole bunch of champions. You had limited revives. It was completely difficult. Now, once people heard this, they really did not like the season. They were not going to come back for this because there was no rewards attached to it, which was a huge mistake for Bungie. They should have at least added some cosmetics. That would have at least done something, but the only reward being the title is just a really bad move, especially near the end of the season. This got so bad that even one of the biggest supporters at the time of Destiny, Glad, who streamed on Twitch, one of the biggest Twitch streamers, he basically took a break from the game and he's one of the biggest people, and he was doing all the hard content in the game, and he even left. So that was when the Destiny community really started to fall apart near the end of the season. Now, the last event to happen in the entire season, at least so far, because I'm recording this literally before the last week, but basically we already knew what's going to happen. The Almighty's going to get destroyed, it might cause some collateral damage, but the last actual piece of content that we got was the quest for the Destiny 1 shotgun, the Felwinter's Lie. Now, this already had been data mined, but it was still pretty cool that we were able to get this shotgun. That was such infamous history piece of Destiny 1. Now, the first quest step when people logged on was a huge blow to community morale, which some people got back on. They're like, well, this amazing shotgun came back, well, might as well come back from that. The thing is, you needed to complete 9 million of the different Seraph Tower events, 3 million across each 3 of the planets, and no one liked the activity in the first place. And now at the very end of the season, we have to do 9 million. People just didn't play it. People hated that idea. In fact, they even came up with the theory that Bungie intended us to fail. However, Bungie had to come out publicly and say, this is not what we intended and we are going to have to fix this. So they added a 5 times multiplier for the week and then 10 times on the weekend, which led to us completing it by the end of the week. But people still weren't happy that they intended us to do 9 million of these events, which weren't that well designed in the first place and just were really boring. The next step was basically just lore focused. You went to the Vostok Crucible map and read some dialogue about Siva, and that was actually pretty cool because we got to go back to a PvP map. You could actually go inside the Iron Temple from Destiny 1. You could eventually get in there. So, that's also pretty cool. The next step was another piece of filler. You had to get 1,000 shotgun kills or 100 kills with shotguns in PvP. It was just filler, and it was kind of annoying to do, but it wasn't difficult, just time consuming. Now, the last step was a special mission that appeared on the Moon Bunker. Except for when it released, you went up to basically start the quest, and it was bugged. You could not complete it. People were so angry, and people just thought at that point, this is a joke of the season, which they're really not wrong. But this was insane that this much stuff has gone wrong with not just this quest, but this entire season in general. People were spamming Bungie to see what was going on. They had came out and said that it was bugged, but unfortunately due to the pandemic from COVID-19, it was kind of slower to work on it. But eventually they did able to fix it. So they did fix it, which people were eventually able to get into the mission. And the mission itself was actually one of the best pieces of the season because the lore was really good, at least between Felwinter and Rasputin. However, if you were really into gameplay, not into lore, it wouldn't really be that big of a deal because there was no enemies to kill, no big boss fight. You just got the shotgun after you learned some stuff about Felwinter and Rasputin. Overall, even with the lore, which was pretty awesome, and then once you got the shotgun, you got lore pieces of the lore book by killing enemies, it was still not a good quest. And being that it was one of the last things that the community will remember the season by, it will definitely be remembered as the worst season, at least so far. Hopefully they don't go lower than this that Bungie has ever created. Hopefully things change for next season, because they said in a Vidoc during Shadowkeep that there would be no other time in Destiny. It would be unlike anything else during Season 11, so let's just hope that something significant happens before the Fall DLC. Because obviously the Fall DLC will bring a bunch of people back, but I mean, it's going to be tough for Bungie to get through this one. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed my thoughts. Please leave your comments in the description about how you like the style of video. And I'll see you guys next time. See ya.